All right, you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. How's your day going?
Not bad. How about yourself? Nice, relaxing Sunday.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
I ha
I wanted
before,
I wanted to
yeah,
give
what's up?
yeah, yeah. No, I'm just wanting to say I don't know what's wrong with my video, but I tried it earlier and it's not working.
That's fine.
Um
We can do camera off.
all right. Okay, cool.
So I've been using your resource that you gave me. That's a great resource before we start. And some, in addition to using ZipRecruiter and Indeed, I actually am going to a round two interview Tuesday at a company called MYOM. Have you ever heard of them?
MNYOM, no. What's that?
MYOM.
No.
Here, I'll show you a little something. You'll like this, and I think you'll be really happy to hear this. All
Hmm.
right, let's see. Let's get your chat. Here, click on them. So they're a real estate private equity firm. The founder and CEO is actually probably a little older than the both of us, but it's
Hmm.
a black-owned business. He was probably in real estate for quite some time. Anyway, he started the business in 2008. And when I applied for a leasing role part-time,
Yeah.
because right now, I'm kind of between home care and, applying, so and waiting on
Uh
another agency approval. But basically, last week I applied for his part-time leasing role, and he came along in email and said, I noticed your podcast and marketing experience. Please advise on a day we can discuss this. So I'm like, how about Friday at noon? And then basically we were talking on Friday. So he asked me three interesting questions. He asked me a really huge, interesting question during the phone call. Why haven't you done more with your podcast? And I'm like, honest, because I haven't had somebody ask me this before. I was like, money. Truth be, I have to work to be able to partly fund the thing. And, that's the reality. What happens when everybody wants you to I'm not saying I don't want to work a 9 to 5, but in certain situations, I think you know where I'm going with this, right?
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
If I had capital or more money, which I explained to him to be able to grow the thing more sufficiently, then I probably wouldn't necessarily need to be applying. That would be a plus. But anyway, this is what he said. So
Gotcha.
let's meet next week on Tuesday. What I want to accomplish is three things. First, we'll find you a role that you're going to be comfortable with in the company. The second is because I understand that you want to acquire properties, during your life. What I'm going to do is teach you, from my point of view, everything I know. So
Hmm.
mentoring. And then last but not least, he also wants to give me space probably at where his office is to be able to produce a podcast. So in other words,
That's
even though I
awesome.
was applying for leasing, I think when he looked at the resume, he's like, do I really want to keep him in that kind of a role when
Hmm.
he's capable of
Exactly.
doing more? Yeah,
That's
that's what we
awesome. Well,
oh yeah, we don't have
congratulations on that.
enough of that in this world.
Yeah, that's awesome that he was able to kind of, I guess, like, kind of expand on what you were already doing. But that also goes to the power of like podcasting. I think you have a lot of people that want to do it, but when people see people doing it, they definitely want to help out as much as like they can. So I'm happy that he's willing to kind of go above and beyond to really make sure that not only that you're comfortable, but you're kind of helping out your own dreams as well.
Right, because we don't have enough of that in this world today, and that can be something we can add to your storytelling today because it's not even
Exactly.
I had Geraldine, come on, which I was glad back in 2024. Perhaps one of my
Yeah.
biggest guests. If someone like that is able to not only recognize the talent that I have, and now that opens, the next few years where I'm able to access CEOs. My almost next question is because I've argued this with Justin, what's the point in a degree at this stage? It's other than corporate gatekeeping.
I mean, A degree is still worth it, honestly and truthfully. I think there's nothing better than like having the foundational knowledge of something. I mean, yes, it is expensive. There are ways for you to kind of learn without going to like a formal school, but I think the degree, depending on what you're going for, still holds value.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think it should be the entire focus because uh I'll get to that during this recording. So, all
Yeah.
right, let's get started. Just give me 1 second. Let me pull my questions up. All right, here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Autism Experience podcast. I have a really great guest today. I have somebody who's been in recruitment and workforce development from the Knowledge House, which is an organization that I've spent some time volunteering with. My guest today is Derrick, who's up at director of, I think, partnerships level, correct?
Yeah, director of corporate engagement.
We'll discuss that today. So, we're going to get to hear from him about his experiences in recruitment as well as working in workforce development, what kind of drew him to workforce development, and kind of learn more about him today. So, with that said, my first question to you is, who do you help professionally?
Good question. Who do I help professionally? So within my role, I mean, there's multiple levels of like or like different stakeholders that I do help. So professionally within my role, I'm definitely working with a lot of corporate partners who want to basically better like how they give back to the communities that their companies are in, whether that be through hiring from folks that are from there, volunteering with people that are going through like the actual program. So you can also kind of speak to that as well, but also really taking their dollars and using it towards building out the program. But also there's a lot of people out there who don't have laptops, who don't have like hotspots. So all of that funding goes towards the betterment of that there.
In
Within my
our short
recruiting, yeah,
lifetime, laptops have gotten more expensive.
very true. Laptops are super expensive, and they are not getting cheaper with the chip wars that are happening right now.
Well, that's a whole nother mess in
Yeah.
itself, when we talk about global trade. I would go into that, but that's not the point of this podcast because that's a completely separate issue. But I would say your point on your point on hotspots. Yeah, because honestly, even at the cheapest, I just switched over to Verizon for my audience and for your knowledge, and they were cheaper, a little cheaper than Altis, but they oversell you on how much internet you actually need. There are
Yeah.
$40 internet plans, but even still, then things are more expensive in our lifetime. Well, no, let me backtrack that statement because back in the 2000s when my father and I had cable vision and my mother had cable vision, their top complaint was how much cable vision Altice was back at that point. And it's funny because now
Mhm.
when I look at just needing the internet, it's like, what do you have these subscriptions around for, really, when
Exactly.
everything is now streamed?
Yeah. 100%.
Because just for even your fun, I was talking with a founder on Friday before the MYYOM interview, and
Mhm.
honestly, her pitch was great and all, but what, with her marketing agency, she's working with Verizon. It's like not too many people want to do sales because it's not the easiest job in the world.
Sales is not easy. 100%. Because you got to make a great impression within a couple of seconds.
Right, and you can't always do that. That's why we have a lot of people who seem to nowadays go to tech and for different reasons. We're going to touch on
Mhm.
that in here as well. But when you went to college, what was your original major and where did you go to college?
Fun story. My original major was civil engineering. I definitely it really came from me always driving around like New York City saying like, oh, I want to be able to kind of build like the next bridge. So when I first started out, I went to LaGuardia Community College up in Queens. I did maybe like a year worth of like, math classes, stats and everything. There was one real class where we had to like actually build like a bridge. My team won second place because we built like a truss bridge, and basically how it was is whatever bridge can hold the most weight for the longest amount of time, that's who won. But we came like second place. But unfortunately, I changed that major, which I'm still kind of regretting because the math was like ridiculous. I feel like math is good when it's numbers, but once it became theory and like thought and like all of this and that, that's when I
It
lost like
sounds
complete
like you had
interest.
my problem with math. So interestingly
Yeah.
enough, you know this. Uh, But and for your audience as well as my audience and people who would view this, I'm actually on the autism spectrum. Math and science were not exactly my two strengths. And when I even went to college, let's just say, even though you need a math foundation, especially in computer science or computer programming, I would still kind of say because my math skills were weak over the years, I was lucky to even get out of college, and it took 9 years to go between two degrees. I see value
Mhm.
in the college degree, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think it's the best thing to get for everyone because if math, especially in your case, wasn't your better subject, then you switched majors. It's the same thing that I did. I switched
Yep.
majors because originally what I wanted to do was film production. WCC
Mhm.
did not have that, and Mercy College didn't have that. The closest programs they had were marketing and then at Mercy business administration, sports management. Problem was, I
Mhm.
probably should have gone to film school, and even Claude helped me determine this. Claude AI program. It's like I worked with the constraints of what we had in the 2000s, whereas in the 2010s, everything kind of started taking off a little bit more.
Mhm. Yep.
I became super jealous, but there isn't much you can really say about that now. So you regret changing your major. What did you change your major to?
I changed it to industrial organizational psychology because I was interested in how people work and like how business like operate. I learned very early on that I mean, yes, the business can make money, but like for any business that had like an HR, I always thought that HR was the most important part of the business because they were the ones who really made sure not everyone was happy, but they really ran like everything. I think in order for you to run like a very successful company, people have to come first. So I was always intrigued with how, to better people in order to work better. So that's the route that I took there, and I made that transition there, and it's been wonderful like ever since.
See, I have a different opinion on human resources. I think it's a necessity that you need that in any business, and I agree with that. Now, whether I think that they're necessary becomes a completely different story because one thing to me is that HR dealing with recruitment were like two completely separate things, if that makes
Yes.
any level of sense. I said that in the 2010s. I'm like, half the reason I think our generation, millennials, those born between 1981 and 1985, all ended up getting frustrated was because HR took over recruiting, which was a completely separate function in the organization. HR was
Mhm.
really meant for paperwork and in some cases organization police and making sure people are up to policy and defending the CEO if he or she needed it. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, very true. I think there are different levels of HR. One thing I'm like super proud of is with one of the first companies I worked for, it was this wastewater firm called Hazen and Sawyer. And basically whenever HR came like around, they were always like super scared because again, they had that same fear of like, HR is just paper pushing, they don't like really care. But uh I was one of the few like HR professionals there to like really take down like that barrier. So really building the relationship between HR and like the company, I think was really, really key because even though I was still like early on, this was like one of my first like big jobs, but being able to kind of walk over to people and say like, hey, like what are you working on? What help do you need? And then really being the one to kind of uplift that in like different conversations was like very, very helpful. So people seeing HR was, actually HR is actually helping with like certain things versus just, HR is here to fire us or HR is here to kind of give us that write up. But being a actual resource to people was what I came in to do. And I was able to do that within my role. Yes, it is the fact that HR can be conflated with like other things. There's different, I guess like levels of HR where there'd be like, benefits, um, you know, uh, recruiting. It still kind of falls within like that resources piece, but I think you have to have the right people in place, but also the right mindset of like you are a resource to not only the company, but also the people that are working for that company.
That's a very fair look because I never thought recruitment was something that a benefits person should have been doing, or then you have in your situation, I don't know if you had actually ended up in recruitment, but my problem always was with recruitment that I felt whether you were applying for a job on the traditional website or utilizing LinkedIn on this situation, which I'm still between you and me, there's a lot of people you see on LinkedIn whose advice that I really question in terms of, what they're suggesting they call strategies, which are really, I think there's better ways to go about a job search. That's something we'll
Yeah.
probably touch on here, but separately, a job search is not a simple checklist like a recruiter or hiring manager seems to make out to be. Life is a lot messier than they try to portray on LinkedIn or social media.
Yeah, I think the one of the downfalls of social media is that it gave everyone an opinion and not everybody needs it.
You're basically stating my version of opinions are like assholes. Everybody has them, but not everybody should share them.
Exactly.
And not everyone, there's a bunch of stuff I could just dunk on in this episode with LinkedIn if I really wanted to, but I'm not going to because you and one of the original people who I think also runs his own business completely separate, Mercado, Chris.
Yeah.
I've seen both of you post. I always liked both your contents. I also liked your co-founder Geraldine's content because it wasn't trying to sell a product or a service. It's basically here's what we do, here's kind of, our not our view, but this is what we do, over at the Knowledge House. So
100%.
what you did two stints at the Knowledge House. This is your second one.
Yeah.
When you left your first job, was Knowledge House the next place you ended up, or did you go somewhere else and then Knowledge House?
After I left the wastewater firm, that's when I went to the Knowledge House. That was in 2018. There I was more of like on the volunteer side of things. So funny story, like when I was at Hayes and Sawyer, I was also doing a lot of like talent acquisition there. So when the role for the Knowledge House opened, one, it was more money, which I was like, yes, like that's a plus. But also they needed to help build and recruit more volunteers. So I was like, if I can recruit people to do these jobs that this wastewater firm has, I can definitely recruit like a volunteer. So when the Knowledge House was very, very young, we were, still doing classes out of like basements and stuff like that, very, very small rooms. But I was able to bring in at least like 100 like volunteers, which was really, really cool. And I'm just like super like proud of.
Right, and I'm one of your volunteers now, and you
Yeah.
even acknowledged it on recently where I've been with on and off, not the Zooms, but I've still been active, and I do come around, and I will be making more effort when the next cohort begins. Uh, I'm just trying to figure some things out right now as
No
well.
worries.
The thing with volunteering is I did it because I saw value in it, but not everyone does always necessarily want to volunteer. Like in one of our online virtual events, and then you can go back to what you're saying. I'm around people who have much better professional experience than I do.
Mhm.
Like people from Con Edison. It's like I could only dream of working in a place like that. But I also know I bring a different value to, to the scholars. So, sometimes they need to hear a different experience from someone who's experienced similar stuff to them.
Mhm. Very true. Very true. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people when they hear volunteering, I mean, yes, I mean, in like a sense, it is free work. Yes, you are volunteering your time to do like a task, but at the same time, I think it's important for me within my role to make sure that you're actually like learning something too. Sure, you'll learn about like the program too, but I think volunteering is also a way that could be used for like a lot of like professional development as well. Like one, depending on what the volunteering is, if it's like a mock like interview or something like that, you're getting that type of training. If you're, talking to like a group of students, you're getting your, your pitches down. You're getting like that practice of like public speaking. So I think a lot of people just don't know like the benefits of like volunteering. That's why there's not a. I mean, I feel like people do know, but they don't really like understand it. And it's on, the org or like the person that's leading the volunteering to really explain that to them and really help them to understand that piece. But that's one level of like volunteering that I think is not known. The cause I think is super easy. Like everyone can see, like once you go, I mean, even in your experience, like once you go to these volunteer events, like you get to see and hear from the students, and that alone can kind of keep you going. So it's just making sure that you have a lot of that as well.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to get my whole situation with my business so that I can eventually register it. And just by coming to, your Knowledge House networking events, I can see a lot of the talent that's going through, and it's really nice to actually see
Yeah.
a lot of people our age who and younger who are going through it. Better for the young
Yeah.
people, but I would say since not maybe not since you started in 2018, but there's been a whole shift toward reskilling. Whether I think it's needed or not is a completely separate issue. But as we got older and the market got more complicated, I can understand, why we want to change careers so often. But, even for me, when I went through WCC's data science and machine learning program, there's one thing I realized going through that. While it would be nice if I could nab a role in data analytics, I also learned how to actually look at data and then make better decisions.
Yeah, that's key. That's
It explains why maybe I decided to show for a few more networking events more recently, not just because, it improves relations with you and, and the crew and everyone, but, it also helps me feel better. And you're right about one thing, because interviewing those people, probably I would have to credit that this year, probably helped me improve or at least communicate better with the guy whose interview I'm going to on Tuesday, because I could
yeah.
communicate directly in that situation. Okay, well, this is actually what happened about why I couldn't advance more in my business. And it's funny,
Mhm.
I just connected that right now during this conversation. So it definitely helps. So you
That's
guys
awesome.
were doing classes originally in person. Where were those classes ran since they were on site?
Sorry, you broke up. What was the question?
What sites did you originally do those classes at?
Oh, so the Knowledge House, when I started, we were in the Bronx in what's called the Banknote Building. Where it is exactly, I have like no clue, but I know that was the name of the building. So we used to hold the classes there. Then we moved to another spot not too far from like Grand Concourse. I think it was like around the corner. I think we were I am forget the school that we were like nearby, but we were also right by Kip High School. So there, that was when we had like an actual like when you go into the office now, there's like a bunch of desks, but like back then we had like I want to say like two big rooms that were used as classrooms for people to actually to like come into class.
Ah, okay. You there?
So from 5 to 8, became like a all like virtual site, which allowed us to also expand to because now we're in like at the six the different cities. So it's helpful in like that. It's helpful in that way. But the trend that I'm seeing now is that you have there's more like people are yearning for like that in person like feeling now. So we are going more hybrid. We do have like monthly classes now where people are coming to the office to have like their classes, but when we run the next cohort, that's definitely going to be something that we're going to be more intentional about. Like it's going to be versus more like virtual than Um, in person is going to be very, very hybrid, where there's going to be a lot of chances for people to have those in person moments, especially when it comes to like classes.
Yeah, well, because listen, I'm doing intro to IT help desk now at WCC, and I realize why I miss the in-person feeling because you can actually talk to people.
Yeah.
I don't mind Zoom because what Zoom does is it allows you to scale more, but
Yes.
and reach people out of the New York area. On the other hand, it's not the same. Because if you're in a
Yeah.
situation where maybe somebody can help you in the short term by floating your resume. I can't do that over Zoom.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to be social over Zoom.
Oh, yeah. And I'm happy that, colleges and even programs like what you guys are running are now going back to, more of the in-person stuff because I think that's what we lacked during COVID. So COVID was different for you guys because I know originally she foresaw doing an online school, which was her idea
Hmm.
from the beginning. But what did COVID change for you guys?
I mean, COVID changed everything. And one way again, just imagine going from like, hey, you know, we normally have classes Monday through Thursday, but then now classes are all going to be virtual now. So, I from what I remember, I think there was like a level of like, hey, we still have to run like these programs. So how do we continue to run it knowing that everyone's virtual? Now we need to make sure that students have laptops. Students have like hotspots. We need to make sure that they can actually attend classes. So that I guess like that operational shift like also happened. The and you also mentioned the good thing was that we were able to scale, being able to have like a class like this. I think one thing that the Knowledge House does like very well is that we have like a model that works, and literally we can, just plug and play anywhere. If there's like a city, if there's like an org that needs just, not only like digital upskilling, but just like this is a pipeline, or this is like a pathway for people to gain those high tech skills that are always changing. Even the program itself changed. We went from a 12-month program to a 6-month program. Like, you have to, no one
What
wants to
went
be
into
on a
the
laptop for
decision
like
to
a year.
change from 12 to 6?
One, it's a long program. You have to take into account the learner profiles that come to our program as well. So these are people that are actively working, that are actively in school, that are, not living other lives, but they still have like their lives to actually live. So they're still doing things that are, you know, needed from like, healthcare, from like family. That, so these
Right.
life things are still happening. So to be in a program for a year where it takes up, hundreds of hours, that takes a toll on people. And people are like, you know what, I can't stay in this program for too long. I mean, also another good thing that we saw is that people who were going through the program, like they were getting placed early. So we had a lot of people that got what they needed, whether it be like a month of the program, maybe 3 months of like the program, and they were able to apply that to get an actual job. So it kind of worked out for that to happen. But those are just some examples.
Yeah, not everyone's going to obviously have that level of ambition where they might need some more time, especially now, depending on the age of the person. But, sometimes I think what it is the younger you are, the somewhat easier technology is to grasp. I'm not saying you and I can't, learn the tech set because clearly I was able to. But at the same time, it's not easy stuff that just anyone can do,
Yeah,
which is where the
like
advice
imagine
learn to code, I think, really failed is not everyone is built for computers.
100%. You are speaking truth.
And the one thing I know, I don't take this specifically out on you, but the advice that I always had trouble with in the 2010s was literally learn a trade, learn to code instead
Hmm.
of that might work for you or that might work for you. But here's the problem. What happens if I can't grasp the basics of either? Then it's
Yeah.
and my other problem with upskilling, you'll probably understand this frustration. You expect me from an empl not you, society. From an employer standpoint, we need you to learn a skill set for later, but what about now? If
Yeah,
I'm,
exactly.
why am I learning something for later that I can't use now?
Yeah. The Benjamin, you are the gyms you are spouting right now are so real. That is a problem that I often talk with a lot of friends and family about, like, and it's just crazy in terms of,
You can't
well,
tell
on
your fellows, you cannot tell your fellows some of this because, it's
no,
selling a service, but you can be somewhat practical to them just in a way
no,
that
yeah, yeah. I mean, what you're saying is right, and I think we are telling, like, our fellows, like, hey, um I think one of the beauties about the program too is that we're teaching you the new things, but you're also learning how to relearn. I think that's something that is like that really sticks out, because you have a lot of people who don't who think when they hear the word computational thinking, they think that works with a computer, but it just really breaks down how you can constantly, like, learn, but also be able to adjust to what's happening. So you're not only learning, like, the skill, but you're learning how to, like, also those durable skills that are going to last through time. You need to be able to talk to people clearly. You need to be able to manage your time. You need to be able to, do things like that. People don't normally hire. I mean, people do hire for the skill set, but I'm going to hire you because you're able to rile up my team in, like, a way, and bring everybody together as well. So there's different levels of uh I lost my train of thought right there. But in terms of what you're saying, um the yeah, sorry, lost it. Lost it.
don't
Like,
worry about it. I could probably finish the point. I think what you're saying is this is something that I go back and forth with my co-found one of my three one of my three co-founders about on a daily basis in text message. And I finally cornered him yesterday on this. I'm like, a degree is useful, but let's talk about the MYOM situation. Did that
mm,
guy really see my degree, or did he read the resume entirely, which is what a lot of what happens now is corporate recruiters and sourcing recruiters out, third party recruiters are not fully reading resumes. Then it gets to the hiring manager. The hiring manager
mm,
basically skims the thing. I had this happen to me in an interview recently with a place that I once worked at, the Goodwill. And she
mm.
admitted to me on the interview, oh, I only glanced at your resume. Now, I handled it very nicely on the phone, but I'm like, oh, hell no, you did not just say that to somebody you're interviewing.
Yeah, I mean,
And you're at a vice
that's
president's level. So you're
yeah.
basically just saying to me, which I can't hold
Mm,
you accountable for, but I can say executives can do whatever they want, but I have to come prepared for your interview and then very possibly get rejected. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. That's a shame. Um, but I mean, it happens more often than, like, you think. When I was recruiting, one, like, thing that I did to help my hiring manager, because I knew my hiring managers were not reading the resumes line by line. I knew that 100%. Um,
So then
I
explain to
think
me
what was helpful
why.
was, like, the notes that I gave them.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go
Yeah,
ahead. You
I
were
think I
saying
think the
one thing
notes
that was
that
helpful.
I gave them was, like, very very helpful. Yeah, the notes. Sorry, like, the interview notes that I would have with people, like, that was more helpful to them than them actually, like, reading the resume itself, because those are, like, questions and answers where they can kind of get a sense of, like, okay, this person knows what, like, they're actually doing. So the resume, it was, I guess, like, a source of truth that they would, like glance at, but um that's how I help, because I know people aren't reading resumes as much as they claim that they are. There is, like, a what the 5 second rule. Like, if your resume doesn't stand out within, like, 5 seconds, people won't actually, like, read it. But it's things like that that I think as the recruiter in me, like that's something that I've learned of that not everybody's going to read everything, so it's on you to kind of like over explain sometimes. But it still sucks that that happened. But on the back end, you do have some people that are doing exactly what I said.
Yes, because I think what it is if you're working for a traditional corporation, I kind of feel like at a certain point, this is going to make it onto the recording and it's not going to sound exactly nice. So if I ruffle a few feathers, I apologize in advance, but yet I don't. What are you all doing
Yeah.
in corporate positions if you can't simply read a resume from top to bottom? And this is kind of a knock on our generation because in the exact situation I'm describing to you that happened, I have older hiring managers in executive roles and founder CEO roles who are actually reading the resume. So what's our age group's excuse?
Exactly. Yeah. I wish I had an answer for you.
You don't have to have an answer because it's not even that it's a rhetorical question at this point. It
Yeah.
brings up the point of we're speed reading. I've seen several recruiters on the LinkedIn platform who basically openly admit I have ADHD. So
Yeah.
your resume has to look a certain way, X, Y, and Z, so I can read it for 5 seconds. I'm like, I have ADHD and
Yeah.
autism, and you're basically saying the quiet part out loud that I've been thinking the whole
Hmm.
time. And I go to basically what I like to call out mode with LinkedIn, and you've probably seen it before because part of the reason Geraldine liked me and she pointed it out going all the way back to 2020 was because every time you showed up in my feed, you were saying things that I think most people were afraid to say. I'm like, exactly. It's not that
Yeah.
whether I'm afraid to say it or not, or be unfiltered is by choice. I
Hmm.
think there's a lot of bad advice that's going around. It's all general, it scales, but it doesn't fit everybody's situation. It's like you're selling checklist, but let's get off the checklist for a minute and look at what life is actually like. Or these are my constraints within why I can't get hired, but are enough people actually reading the documents that I spend all this time on? Because at a certain point, it's not
Yeah.
even about the resume anymore. Other times, I can I've been getting requested by executives this year that are reading this resume who I've had interviews with. The problem is I'm freezing up in round two. Now, the reason I didn't
Yeah.
freeze up with Tuesday's interview, even on a phone, was because we were having an actual conversation. He
Hmm.
wasn't trying to grill or interrogate me off what I can or cannot do. He's open-minded enough, unlike some other executives that I had interviews with who were probably evaluating, can he actually fit into this role? Instead
Hmm.
of maybe there's another department he might fit better in, if not this role. But nobody went to
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah. I think what you're experiencing is like unfortunate, but um, it's something that I think we all just not deal with, but one I love the fact that like you're voicing it too, because I think a lot of people need to like hear that. If you expect me to do you expect me at my best, but when I come towards you and you're not at your best, like what the hell is going on? So having that type of feeling is definitely right. Um, but yeah.
So, how long have you been on LinkedIn and tell us about the type of content that you like to share?
LinkedIn, I'm not the most active. I'm not a very active social media person in like the first place. In terms of how long I've been on LinkedIn, who knows? Probably as long as LinkedIn has been up, I've probably been on it for like that long. But in terms of the content that I do post is mostly some reposts of my newsletter, Cocoon Careers, just posting like content like about that. If there is like any events that I'm like a part of, I'll probably won't post about it, but I'll probably make like a comment about it. Something that I've learned is that comments work just as well as posts. comments, you get a lot more views when they, if you have someone that is, super popular on LinkedIn and like they post and you just write like a comment, your comment gets seen by everyone. So rather than like posting, I'll probably just write more comments on things that like I've been like a part of. But that's just a way for me to one use that platform to just to get the word up about the work that I do. In terms of content, I just love to reshare like a lot of the articles and reports that I'm seeing. I think it's things that people don't have access to, so I'm able to follow the right people that are like, hey, look at this free, report on something. The one that I'm reading now, it's I want to say like a 200 pager, but I'm using Notebook LM to kind of help like summarize that. But this one is about basically the roles that have like disappeared from like the census. So like something
What
like the
roles have
elevator.
disappeared from the census? I think our my audience would be interested in hearing that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not done with like the full report yet. Like I just found it. But something that I read was basically how the elevator, back in like the 20s or like the 1910s, they had the person that would lift up like the elevator pulley. Like that was one example of a role
Yeah,
that literally
the elevator doorman.
yeah, so once like, tech came in, that completely eliminated that job. And then another claim that they had is that a lot of the roles that we're saying are going to be replaced by AI, like they've been those like and some of them are like the roles that will like never be touched because one they've been a job for so long, and it takes, I mean, the tech that we have for in terms of like AI, it's very very helpful, but you still need a human. And one example that they gave is like, pilots. Planes right now are flown through like autopilot, but you still need the actual pilot to manage these things just to make like, hey, like something's off, I need to kind of, change, course or something like that. So you still need that human decision making there. So for
That's
a
a
lot of the roles
little
that
scary to think about. So planes
what
on when we were kids and we used to play with like, with like early stage drones and like remote control cars. Thinking about that now, when you say autopilot, that's kind of a little scary.
I mean, have when was the last time you've flown on a plane?
2022.
100% sure that plane was flown on autopilot with the pilot there. That's how planes are flown.
Ah, you still need a human though. That part I would agree with you
Exactly.
on.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but that's the whole point. Like there's still roles that are out there where regardless of what tech is there, what like, new tool, shiny tool is there, you still need that human there. So, I think what this report shows is not only the jobs that are like, here to stay, but you'll also see that these jobs still require like a human to be present, regardless of how, you know,
So like are we still
what
going to have
language.
like entry level data entry operator type of roles, or are they just going to be more challenging to get?
No, I think you'll still have a level of it in terms of what it would look like. Like, I'm not sure, but there's still going to be a level of, regardless of what data, the tool is helping you gather, is this data right? We need someone to check that. Like, there's still a person that's going to be involved. So I think it's going to be like a variation of how it looks. It may change from you just rather than like, pulling data, like you have the tool to pull like that data, but now you have to talk about like that data. So the fundamentals of the role are still going to stay here, which I think is helpful for an entry level person to actually do. So I do think those roles will stay.
That's if corporate HR departments would actually not keep raising the bar on what they want for, an employee, because like they're taking things like chat GPT or AI tools and they're expecting, or Figma even, and they're expecting somebody to know this for 10 years when it hasn't even been out that long.
Oh yeah, those types of job descriptions you just have to laugh at. Like when you see that on, if a
I
company is
do.
saying,
I'm like, what did you fucking make this with? Chat GPT?
yeah, if a company says you need 7 years of AI experience, run the other way.
Please explain where they come up with these numbers. It's like, are you just pulling it out of your asshole at this point?
Yeah, I mean, but then that's how you know that a lot of people don't know. Honestly and truthfully.
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of that's why you have channels like Joshua Fluke on YouTube that exist because it's calling out a lot of the utter corporate nonsense at this point. I don't have anything personal against corporate hiring managers or corporate recruiters, but a lot of what I call out is effectively the corporate gatekeeping.
Hmm. Yeah,
Do you
there's a
really
lot of that.
do you really need a degree or are you just using it as a screener because Justin and I Frank go back and forth about at will employment the system right now kind of has set us up in a way where they still want to evaluate you on a college degree but yet they don't hire the person with the college degree. They hire the person
Mhm.
who maybe not came out of a boot camp or self-taught themselves, but like somewhat mildly qualified.
Yeah, I mean, something that I used to hear a lot from like hiring managers, because again, that's always like a big question. I think for us at the Knowledge House, we always like face that too, in terms of like, hey, you have this role. We have someone who has this exact skills, but you're holding them back because they don't have a diploma. Like that's dumb. But something
So
that you always.
ChatGPT explains something to me that's related to
Mhm.
your point. I asked when obviously I've applied for roles through you guys and you broke it down to me in email with the program manager, and that's completely fine. I ran that through ChatGPT, and ChatGPT effectively pointed to a bigger problem that I think this is where people like me finally just got mad at the degree and finally said, it's the degree's not the problem, but where college failed in preparation was actually explaining the real world that most people do a role that's aligned or similar to a project manager, like a project coordinator, or they're doing adjacent work, and that's how they're
Mhm.
getting hired. But I'm like, then at the same time, to expect that from somebody like me who might have some skills that match the program manager, it's just a matter of the human on the other end making the decision or the AI to at least advance me forward. I could do the role if trained properly.
100%.
The
percent
the thing is, I think the problem that I have with gatekeeping is basically saying we need someone who's already been doing the work because not you guys. I'm taking this out on the system by basically saying
Hmm.
what happened to training and developing people because this was done back when boomers started in the workforce. What happened to
Yeah.
those days? Now we just kick everybody into training programs, post-secondary college education, and expect post-secondary education to do it and they don't actually tell us, how the real world works. They just basically are like, here's a career fair, go network.
Yeah, yeah. I think you are hitting on like a bunch of like real points. Um which again not a lot of people say, but that's definitely the truth there.
Well, think about it this. I've said this to some of the fellows on these events. I'm like
Mhm.
literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. You're expecting me to have so and so, but yet I don't have so and so, and you could just meet me in the middle somewhere. But you know, it feels like with all our use of technology nowadays, especially for people in our age group who are doing the decision making in departments and recruitment departments, it seems they forgot one thing in all of this. There's an
Mhm.
app that we forgot how to use. Which app do you think it was?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm curious.
The BRAIN,
B a barn?
brain.
Oh, brain. Oh, why
We
can't I spell?
outsourced our brains to technology instead of actually used our brains to basically say, not you and me. I'm sure
Mhm.
you're better at evaluating people than most people give you credit for. Like you've been able to evaluate me this whole time and see that eventually in the right situation, I could fit a role there. It would just have to be in the right situation.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean,
that's an eventual goal, but obviously I have to get, the right amount of experience. I'm not shutting the feedback down. It was good feedback. It's just going to be, which of these nonprofit organizations is going to be patient enough with me, for workforce development to be patient. That's the real bottleneck.
Yeah, yeah. I think what what needs to, I mean, not, I don't want to say no one's doing this, because you do have companies that are doing this. You do have people that are like passionate about this too, especially in like workforce. But having when they people ask for the like experiences, things like that, and they say, you don't have enough experience, but like I need this role to gain the experience, like that's a dumb like back and forth. But what it really comes down to is like, does the person do like the basic fundamentals of this role here? And I think you have a lot of companies that are hiring for that, and that's what we're trying to do with like workforce. Like, hey, this person has the basic fundamentals of what you're asking for, regardless if they don't have experience within like this like specific
So
space,
going
they
back
can
to the
just
chat
operate.
GPT point about adjacent, like could you do the
Mhm.
role adjacently? And I've even had to kick chat GPT's butt on this several times. I'm like, how do you get the experience if you don't have the experience? If, let's say, the top organization looking for a program manager doesn't hire you, but then you go to the next level down coordinator, that doesn't hire you, you're stuck with volunteering.
Yeah, yeah,
It was like going
yeah.
to
I mean,
bartending school in 2010, and then they want you to start all the way down at like a restaurant bus. It's like, this is
mhm.
unrealistic. People do not. I'm going to cite something to you. You may or may not disagree with me. When you read the workforce statistics, what's the statistical unemployment rate now?
uh, um, the national one,
State level and national.
is it around what? Well, one, I don't know, but I'm curious.
Let me see if I can look that up real quick. So, hold on.
And
National
you using
unemployment
AI to
rate
help you?
is at a 4.2%.
Okay,
Now let's go.
was New York
I'm about to look that up. 4.6.
4.6? Okay.
If you probably took within that 4.6 between the city and the counties, I would probably say a good amount of those statistics, those are people who dropped out. They just stopped. They just decided one day, when am I going to get hired? Is this still really worth my time, or should I
Mhm.
try something else?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely full of people that are that formally quit, so they report those numbers, but also people who just aren't participating within like the workforce too. And honestly, I think that number may like be higher of the people who are not participating in the workforce.
Well, this is where having an understanding of politics completely helps, because both parties don't want to report the real numbers. They want to report what looks good, for their
Yeah.
agendas. In
Mhm.
reality, they'd rather generation bash and they'd rather say X, Y, and Z,
They're
if
putting
that
the
makes
Gen
any
Zers.
level of sense. Basically, they all have agendas. It's like, basically, let's blame Gen Z and millennials for why the unemployment rate is what it is, instead of realize we haven't given people pathways to succeed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's that's a real problem. I feel like every generation experiences something different. We all, not to say that we all have the same problems, but there's different levels of problems that are happening.
The silent generation can't retire because, they were born into the Great Depression. So while
Mm.
and they taught their young boomer children, look for the stable job, the stable union job, or whatever it is. And then, throughout the boomers
Yeah.
generation, they all can't retire either. Gen X is going to be the first generation where Social Security won't be the same. Uh,
Yep.
we don't even know what Social Security is going to look like when it's our turn.
Yeah. Like when you hear things like that in terms like how
Yeah, go ahead. You there?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Um, my question was like around like when you hear the fact that by like every generation there's like no, I guess like things kind of get like shorter and shorter, or things are getting like cut down. Like now we won't see what social security is and stuff like that. What's like your jerk, like your knee jerk reaction when like you hear things like that?
It sort of starts to beg the question because I just turned 40 last year. It's like I have to think about this in 20 years, in 20 to 25 years. So when I start to look at this, I'm like, what do I really want in my life? Do I want to continue
Mhm.
building myself a container like Geraldine and her co-founder did, where eventually what this will do is provide me an income, or do I want to try to continue to chase the corporate career? The problem is, I think now between you and me, and I'm not admitting this, I'm going to basically say the quiet part out loud. I would like to do both, but one of them hinges on corporate permission and someone being open, like, the Tuesday interview, to the possibility of actually mentoring me properly, and that's difficult to find.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Very,
real
very, very difficult to find.
yeah.
They're out there, they exist, but it's like for the remainder of our working years, especially because in your 40s, you maybe have 4 to 5 years, as Ray Dalio has said, 40s is your midlife squeeze. If you're not married, you're probably, eventually starting to have to take care of an aging parent.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
that was the one thing where I like Knowledge House's mission. I praised you and Gerald. I praised you for it before in person, and then her as well. I always liked the mission, because the mission isn't just necessarily about tech skills. The idea is we equip you with this, whether it leads somewhere, what you do with it,
Yeah.
matters. It's just unfortunately we're still meeting an issue in the workforce that I think you and I would probably agree on at this point. At some point, instead of focusing on how long a person is going to stay, why don't you just do what my Tuesday interview basically just did and say, look at a resume by how can we help each other out?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point. Is at the knowledge house just teaching you those skills to like, hey, this is changing, and this is the change that you should know about. And whatever you do with the knowledge that we just gave you, hence the name knowledge house. This is for you to actually like go on and like take it. Um, I think there definitely needs to be a much better level of like this is how it applies to the real world. So giving folks like more of like examples of like, hey, this is what I mean, that leads to like a lot of like apprenticeship work and stuff as well. But um,
I would
the hard
love to
part is,
see the workforce move toward actual apprenticeships in tech and be
yeah, we
realistic
don't
about what they look for in a candidate. You do it with the
see.
skilled trades.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like tech can fit anywhere. Tech can fit in construction. Tech can fit in healthcare. It can fit in finance. So it's not a sense of like, hey, you need these like tech roles, but tech is within every role. So basically, regardless, I think the beauty about the knowledge house is regardless of what industry, like we're teaching you the basic fundamentals and giving you the literacy to kind of take it and continue on. So you can be in construction working with like, whatever tool, but you know how to use Claude now. You could be working in healthcare, some like billing expert, and you have the basic fundamentals of using Google spreadsheet formulas, but also using Claude to help you create those formulas. So regardless of what space you're in, you're gathering those tech skills. So I think yes, the city as like a whole needs to do more of like apprenticeship style work because again, that's that needs to happen because it's the way that we're doing it now is not proper at all. And I want to give credit to Germany. Germany does this very, very well. Like it's literally college to work. Everyone. Like there's if you're in
European countries
yeah.
which we would like America to follow. I'm going to say this, and I think because we only have 5 minutes left, this is really for you and the audience and Geraldine. First, do not consider what I'm about to say disclaimer political. Do I side with this party or that party? We need to start electing presidents of the United States who are not approaching 80 years old or older than that. We need to start looking at people under the age of 60 to around the start of 40 or 30. We need to look at
Mhm.
who's best for us and looking forward to our tech future because Mobile Noble CEO Andrew Yang many years ago in 2020 called what AI would do.
Mhm.
He
Has a
said
really good book too.
nobody listened to him. He said that when he tried to run for president. He said the same thing when he tried to run for mayor of New York City. Everybody elects basically senior. Not that I'm against having seniors in office, but to be honest, there's kind of a point where your public policy has to also make sense for younger people, people under the age of
Mhm.
50, people under the age of 40, people under the age of 30, not what
Yeah,
worked
I
in the
mean,
20th century.
yeah, you definitely make a really, really good point in terms of I think there should be like an age limit on folks that are running for president. Like I feel like it should be. There is like a level of like, new blood that needs to come in. But I mean, honestly and truthfully, I don't follow politics as much as like I
That
should.
wasn't meant to say you should follow politics. That was
No,
meant
no,
to
no, no,
say
no.
we're looking at corporate America also, where I also think business executives should start to represent younger groups.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And exactly. But I just don't feel as if I mean, yeah. Well, in terms of that, I was going the other route of like there are a lot of like council members and like politicians that are out there that are fighting for what the I guess like the newer or like they're fighting for things for the now. So this is like a lot of new blood that's out there. Um, but I do see it in the sense of what you're talking about too. Like if that's the case, then people are just holding the power really.
Well, yeah, because this goes back to the different times. But anyway, we definitely had a great conversation today, and there were a lot of gems that I think people will definitely appreciate. Sorry that your video didn't work, but that just means you have to reset your computer sometimes. But anyway, it was appreciated that you came by today, and we'll do another collaboration soon. All right.
Soon. Thank you,
All
Benjamin.
right.
Appreciate it.
Welcome, Derrick. Have a good day.
You too.
All right.